Hey guys, welcome back to another Tasting Tuesday. My name is Ryan, and today we got something special for you. Sound a little sick right now. Sorry about that. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back to doing a Tasting Tuesday this week. Thank goodness I actually filmed the last two videos back to back because I got pretty sick after I filmed those, and on the mend now. I'm definitely feeling a lot better, and my taste is fully back, and I'm ready to do another Tasting Tuesday video. And we have a really exciting bourbon today. I don't know if we've ever done a bourbon. I think we did Wild Turkey. We did do Wild Turkey, but this one is very special. But before we get into the tasting, I would love if you guys could like the video and subscribe. I actually went through some of the statistics, and some of the videos are doing really well, and the ones that are doing really well have tons of likes, and I really want to reach more people, and I want to keep doing these reviews. So if you guys could just like the video, that really helps the algorithm, and I'll get a lot more views on the videos, and then I can keep making them and keep reaching more people. So I appreciate like and subscribe. Now let's get into the tasting. This week we have Kentucky Owl Confiscated. This is an amazing bourbon. It has been on the top lists for like the last several years. I heard about it on a podcast. It's very hard to find. Sometimes the price can be fluctuating. It usually comes in around $115 to $125. I actually found this at Trader Joe's, believe it or not, and it was $80. And I saw it, and I said, if it's $80 next week, I was finishing up a big job. I said, if it's $80, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get it. And as sure enough, a week later, they had one bottle left, and I picked it up for $80. But I haven't seen it under $115 since then. But here we go. Let's give it a taste. This is a bourbon that is not actually produced at a specific distillery. It kind of I think they just buy barrels and they kind of make their own blend. And there's different levels to this. I think they're now doing a rye, but originally it was like Kentucky Owl batch number, and I think they're on batch 9 or batch 11 now. And those ones are very expensive. So they're like $300 for one bottle of a batch number. Now the Confiscated is kind of a newer addition to the lineup. Kind of gives you a chance to taste some of the super high quality rare bourbons that they're making that are award winning and super famous, but at a much lower price. Again, that $80 somewhere up to like $120, which is a lot for a bourbon, but I don't think I'd ever pay $300 for a bourbon because it's a little bit much. But let's get into tasting here. Wow, immediately brown sugar. Like a brown butter. Definitely some light fruit, some light apricot, some orange zest. You got that classic bourbon wood note, right? But this smells really old. So that's a big complaint for this whiskey at this price, is that there's no age statement on it. A lot of people say, oh, if it's 15 or 18 years, why don't they put it on the bourbon? I just don't think they have consistently that amount of aged whiskey, and they're making a really stellar product, and it's pretty popular. So I don't think they need an age statement. It would be nice to have one so you can kind of know, but this smells aged. I mean, the wood is very prominent. Spice, allspice. Maybe a hint of cherry in there with the fruit. Leather, tobacco. I mean, there's so many flavors. I mean, every time you smell, you're getting a new scent, a new note. Let's get into the tasting of this. It's immediate spice. I mean, the alcohol is high on this, so you get hit with the intensity of the alcohol a little bit, but I'm not tasting alcohol right away. I'm tasting this rich spice, leather, tobacco. I'm getting a hint of that fruit, vanilla, honey, like a burnt brown sugar. There's a viscosity to it that's very elevated from a standard bourbon. I mean, my first thought is bourbon. That's great. I'm glad that even at a high price point, it's a specialty bourbon, still has those bourbon elements that you really love. If you love bourbon, I've said it in the past that bourbon is not my favorite drink, but I do like some of the elements in it, and I'm getting those elements here. I'm getting the wood. I'm getting the vanilla, hints of honey, some fruit, some dried fruits like apricots and oranges. They're so much more subtle and elegant on this whiskey. The leather and tobacco, the age on this, it's got to be 15, 18, maybe even 20 years old. This is so aged. I know it doesn't say it on the bottle. It could be 10 years, but the age on this is unlike any bourbon I've ever tried before. This tastes like two bourbons have been mended together. Like, when you have preservatives and you add water and sugar and you kind of you cook it down, and that richness just comes out even stronger, and then you get like a grape jelly or strawberry jelly. Like you're taking the fruit that's mixed with the water, and then you're just concentrating it down into a jam. This tastes like bourbon has been reduced down and concentrated into a stronger, more intense bourbon. The flavors are wild. I think this is one of the greatest experiences for an American whiskey that I've ever had. I really like this bourbon. I had, as you can see, a bunch of it when I bought it. That was probably 3 or 4 months ago. Have not had it in 3 or 4 months. It's just been sitting on the bar. And coming back to it, wow. This is unbelievable. It's got everything you'd want, and even if you don't like bourbon, this is fantastic. It's got the hints, the subtleness of the orange peel, the apricot that you get in Japanese whiskey, that you get in Scotch. On the back it says, in 1916, just before Prohibition, my family's entire whiskey inventory was seized by the federal government, never to be seen again. Confiscated Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey is a tribute to the vanished barrels of bourbon and the opportunities lost. Distilled in Kentucky. Wow. I think this experience is something that you guys should all try. I think if you can find a bottle, maybe split it with your friends. Say, hey, let's go in on a bottle of this. If you can find it at a restaurant, even better. You could buy just a shot of it, but it's pretty wild. I am not somebody who immediately grabs for a bourbon, and I would grab for this, anytime. This is fantastic. That leather, that tobacco, that richness of wood. It's got this aged flavor that you get on like a 20 or 25-year-old Scotch. It's so elegant. And it hasn't been watered down a bunch. I think it clocking in at 96.4 proof, 48.2% alcohol. I actually drank most of this over ice. I poured over ice. The strength of it upheld to the ice. It concentrated the flavors a little bit more. So now the question is it worth $80 to $120? That was something I really thought about while drinking it. I was like, I got to try it. It's this big whiskey brand, but is it worth the money? And I'm still torn on it. I think if this was $50 to $75, I'd say 100% buy it. But because most of you are going to find this at $120, I think that's a little steep. I think the price could be a little bit lower. Since most bourbons come in that like $20 to $40 range, this being 3 times higher than the average bourbon in America, I think that's a little bit excessive. I think it's definitely double as good as a regular bourbon. I don't know if it's 3 times as good. But I think this is an experience that you guys should try. On a ratings, I'm going to give this a 9.1 out of 10. I really think that this has a lot of elements in it that are unique. I haven't really ever tried a bourbon like this, and even when I've tried some after, they never really hold up to this level. And again, maybe I'm jaded because I really like Japanese whiskey and Scotch. Maybe there's elements in this that I'm really liking, that are making me, rate this higher. But if you like bourbon, you have to try the Kentucky Owl Confiscated. This is some good whiskey. Well, thank you guys for joining me again for this tasting. Try and pick yourself up a bottle of Kentucky Owl, or at least try it if you can find it in a restaurant. It's a really unique experience and really, really great whiskey. And until next week, enjoy the tastings.